Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Merle Massey. I'm the coordinator for the Undergraduate Research Initiative here at the University of Saskatchewan. And one of my programs is called SURE, the Student Undergraduate Research Experience. And one of our, we've had this session a couple of times before, or a similar one, but one of the things that students are most surprised about research is publishing. And finds like, what? You mean you have to, put your stuff out there into the world? It's like, yes, you do. And then we have a special place here at the University of Saskatchewan. We have an undergraduate research journal. So it's specifically for undergraduate students here at the U of S, and you can publish your research, and whether that's research that you did in a class, for a class, a capstone project, honors project, it's just a really great class that you wrote a great paper for, or maybe you're doing summer research or some other kind of term research. And with that, I'm going to pass the baton over to Kandice Parker, who's the graduate editor-in-chief, and Alina Sami, who's the undergraduate editor-in-chief of USURJ. And with that, over to you.
All right, so I'm Kandice Parker. I am a PhD student in psychology in the Culture, Health, and Human Development stream. And I've been graduate editor-in-chief with USURJ for about a year. USURJ stands for University of Saskatchewan Undergraduate Research Journal. And I'm here with Alina, and I'll let her introduce herself now.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Alina Sami, and I'm the undergraduate editor-in-chief of USURJ this year. And this is my third year of involvement with USURJ. And I'm also an undergraduate student at the university.
All right, so we'll cover these topics today. We'll start by explaining why it might be beneficial for you to publish with USURJ, and maybe start doing so as an undergraduate. And next, we'll introduce USURJ, describe the publication process, and we'll answer any questions you might have. So why publish? So first, what is the point of investigation, reflection, review, or whatever knowledge you are garnering in your academic journey if you don't share your findings with others and contribute to collective understanding and action? So publishing allows us to contribute to our fields, and others are able to build on the work that we have done. Further, reality is that publications are an important addition to your resume or your CV. And they look great on graduate school applications. And they are also critical additions on applications for funding and scholarships. So we advise that it's best to start publishing early. And this gives you time to learn the process, and you can master a publication or two, and then you can work on publishing more frequently. And undergraduate journals like USURJ are a great place to start, because we're oriented to mentoring and teaching undergraduates. So you get more support from us as compared to a regular academic journal.
Okay, so what is USURJ? So USURJ is an online open access scholarly journal that is indexed in the DOAJ. So the DOAJ stands for the Directory of Open Access Journals. And we'll talk more about what open access means and what DOAJ is later on in the presentation. USURJ is also multidisciplinary. So we also accept works that cross different disciplines, and we accept works that are multi-authored. So for example, for multidisciplinary, we have 4 different sections of the journal. So we have health sciences, natural sciences, humanities and fine arts, and social sciences. So yeah, we accept works from all different colleges and those different fields, as well as works that cross those different sections. And finally, we are a peer-reviewed journal. And the specific peer review process that we follow is called a double-blind or a double anonymized peer review. And this just means that the authors and the reviewers don't know each other's identity. And of course, this is to help minimize bias in the peer review process. Okay. So this slide just shows why we have developed a model for USURJ that is free for authors to submit to us and also free for readers to access the different works. So as you can see, this shows the different subscription costs for different publishers. So our library pays Science Direct about $1.5 million and Wiley about $900,000 to access works that are published with them. So publishers are making a lot of money. In fact, Elsevier, which is one of the largest publishers, they have a profit margin that is higher than Google, Amazon, and Apple. So some of the big tech companies. So the issue is that while these publishers are making a lot of money, the authors and reviewers, they are still not being compensated, or they're not being paid for their contribution. So Elsevier, for example, Elsevier, in order for an author to publish with Elsevier in an open access format, authors actually have to pay to publish with them. And this could be anywhere from like 150 to 5,000 US dollars in order to publish with them. So publishing is it's a very expensive process for some of these publishers. So the slides just seem to be a little bit slow, but let's see if we can move to the next one. Candice, could you maybe move to the next slide? Okay, perfect. So this slide again reiterates the same idea. For example, in order to access this paper, you might have to pay about 38 US dollars per day to access it. And after that access period, you will no longer have access to this again, and you'll have to pay again in order to access this work. So again, publication, it could be very expensive for both readers and authors. That's why open access is so important. So why should we choose open access? Open access is a great way to accelerate research and knowledge creation. It democratizes access to research results, and it helps make people more informed decisions. If people are able to access works more readily, they're able to become a more informed consumer and a more informed citizen in general. So what does this mean for you? Well, if you choose to publish in an open access journal, it will enhance your Google ability. This means that it will increase the visibility of your work. More people are able to access your work, and as a result, your work will get cited more often. In fact, it's found that open access papers are in fact cited more often. So open access is a great choice. So now let's look at what exactly DOAJ is. So DOAJ stands for the Directory of Open Access Journals. So it's a community curated online platform that basically indexes and provides access to high quality open access journals. So in order to be indexed with the DOAJ, we have some quality assurance guidelines to follow. So the DOAJ just makes sure that any article that is indexed with them, that they are, or any journal that is indexed with them, that they are legitimate open access journals with legitimate peer review processes. So again, this just adds kind of that quality assurance to our journal. Now let's look at who can submit to USURJ. So we accept papers from undergraduate students from all colleges at the University of Saskatchewan for up to 2 years after graduation. This means that even after you graduate, you can still submit your work as long as the work was done while you were in undergrad. Okay, so I think Candice will now talk about this section.
So what do we publish at USURJ? So submitted manuscripts must be high quality and work must be original. And we accept submissions from all disciplines and professional colleges. Work can be multi-authored, and we accept papers in 3 different formats. So research papers, review papers, not summaries, but critical reviews, and research snapshots, which I'll go over next. And we are also currently trying to encourage alternative submissions that might include alternative ways of knowing, such as Indigenous ways of knowing, unorthodox writing styles, unorthodox research methodology. So what is a research snapshot? Research snapshot submissions will not go through the peer review process, but will be managed and edited with the help of USURJ's editors. So a snapshot's about 500 words, and you'll need a supporting blurb from your prof. And a snapshot is short, succinct, and it describes your research goals, your years of experience in research, any methodology that you may have employed, your results, if there are any results, maybe some figures, and finally, the significance of your work, which is also supported by the blob that your prof submits, or the blurb, not blob. And here's an example of a research snapshot published by USURJ. So in this piece, the student outlines a research proposal to investigate the impact of student participation in USURJ. They proposed the use of a survey, and at this point they did not have results. So you can submit a snapshot even if you haven't completed a study yet. And on the bottom right, you can see the statement of support from a prof who outlines why this study will be valuable. And how often do we publish? We publish continuously with 2 issues per volume, and we release an issue approximately every school term. And as you can see, we have really nice cover art, which are chosen pieces that were submitted by U of S students.
Candice, I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Can you go a couple slides back and talk a little bit more about original? What do you mean by original research? I think it's the one before.
Yeah, so we're looking for work that, is this the right
one
slide?
More.
Yeah.
One more. There we go.
I just realized, I was like, this is not the slide. So what we mean by original work is that we're interested in not just like summarizing what's out there, but contributing in some way, or building on that work in some way. So usually, like when you're doing a research paper, for example, you do a review of like, this is what we know, and here are the gaps that need to be addressed. Here's what's not known. And so this is like something that hasn't been done yet, maybe, or like a perspective or a take. It doesn't have to be like research necessarily, but like some kind of engagement with the work that is original, hasn't been done yet, or yeah, it's building on previous like conceptualizations, previous theories. Yeah, so we're looking for like new ideas, new takes, not just like summaries of a bunch of other work that's already out there.
Right. So more scholarly in nature, and also it can be potentially, and I know that I've seen them research in nature as well, like or that let's say a fire class that someone has written or done some original research for a first year research experience class, or a pharmacy and nutrition class, and they did a survey of the campus and published some of that, things like that. Anything that's original that you created for a class or for a summer project.
Yeah.
Correct? Awesome. Just checking in. Thank you.
Cool. All right. So why choose USURJ? So first, USURJ is open access, so it's free to use, and others. More people will read your work, and your work is more likely to be cited because it's free. It's available to everybody. USURJ also helps you through the process of peer review publishing. So we cater to undergraduates. We're very generous and forgiving. It's a great place to start your journey with publishing because we help you every step of the way. You get valuable, detailed feedback on your writing. and you learn transferable skills in writing for publication, responding to feedback, and evaluating the impact of your work. So this might help you prepare for graduate studies and help you get into graduate studies if that's your goal. And we don't charge you to publish. And additionally, every year, you have a chance, if you've published with our journal, to win one of 2 annual best paper prizes, which you win $200. And then it looks really good on your CV as well. So papers are nominated for these prizes by section editors, so by humanities or natural sciences teams, and a multidisciplinary panel of academic judges decides on the best paper. So what impact can you expect when you publish with USURJ? This is as of last year, so hopefully we have been cited a few more times now over the last year. But as of last year, over 30 of our articles were cited 71 times by peer-reviewed journals. And besides potentially impacting the base of knowledge, authors report very positive and valuable experiences after publishing with USURJ. So students here indicate that they appreciated what they learned from the comments and the feedback. The one student said, the feedback I received from your reviewers was amazing. I'm so glad I went through the process. At first I was a little disheartened to see so many comments, but it made me dig deeper into my research, think more about my topic, and even change some of my arguments. And that's that's a good end result of any successful peer review process. And that's my experience in publishing manuscripts, is that getting that feedback is a little daunting at first. You're just like, oh, I'm so attached to this idea of mine, and they just completely ripped it apart, and I can't delete this. But the more you engage with it and think about it, it helps you grow as a researcher and improve your writing, improve the whole process, how you share your ideas. And I've definitely learned a lot from the peer review process, but it is a little bit scary at first, and at USURJ, we make it a little bit easier.
Okay, so now I'll talk briefly about the organization of USURJ. So this is the little organizational chart that we have. So as you can see, we have 4 different disciplinary sections in USURJ. So we have a humanities and fine arts section, a social sciences section, then health sciences and natural sciences. So your article will be submitted to one of these sections. And each section is made up of a group of associate editors, a senior editor, and about 1 to 2 grad advisors. So those are some graduate students as well. And in addition to our 4 disciplinary sections, we also have a layout team and communications team that helps us promote the journal and also puts together the articles for publication. And of course, at the top, we have the editor-in-chief team. This is made up of the undergraduate editor-in-chief and the graduate editor-in-chief. So that's me and Kandice. We also have a faculty advisor, that's Helen Power. Okay. And she's an engineering librarian. And then we have a staff advisor, and that's Liv Markin. And she's also the coordinator for the Writing Help Center at the library. And then we have some science advisors as well. Okay, so now let's look at the publication process and what is involved. And we'll also go over some tips at the end. So there are 5 main steps to the publication process. First, you submit your work. Then we decide if it's fit for peer review, and if it is, it goes to peer review. And then stage 3 is copy editing, stage 4 is production, and if it all goes well, then stage 5 is publication. So let's look at the general method of submitting your work. So generally, if you submit a paper to any journal, there's a couple different documents that you have to submit. So first of all, there's a main file. This is the paper that you want to publish. There are also other documents like figures or any supplementary files like data or like any extra data or tables that you were not able to include in the main body of your paper. There's also something called a publication agreement and copyright license, and we'll talk a bit more about this, but this is absolutely necessary for your paper to be published. And it talks about what type of license you want for your work, and then also like potential reviewers, things like that. So this next slide here, we'll talk about how to submit your work specifically for USURJ. So for USURJ, you need to submit 2 files. The first is a submission file. Again, this is a paper you want to publish. And so when you're submitting your submission file, make sure that it is anonymized. So you have to make sure that there's no names or any sort of identifying information that could compromise the double-blind peer review process. And you also have to make sure that if you use third-party figures in your paper, you have written permission from the original copyright holders to use those figures. So by third-party figures, we mean any figures that were not produced directly by you. So the next file is called a publication agreement, and this is a very important document. Remember, your work cannot be published without a complete publication agreement, so make sure that you go through all the pages and you read everything very carefully. You can find the publication agreement on our website, and within the publication agreement, there's 2 important sections. In one section, you have to suggest potential reviewers. And then there's also a section where you choose your copyright license, and we'll talk a bit about that later. One thing to keep in mind is when you're suggesting reviewers, make sure that you don't contact the reviewers in advance. Again, we want to make sure we're not compromising the double-blind peer review process. And detailed instructions are available online at this link, and you can just also use the link to our journal right here at the bottom. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about navigating copyright. So the Canadian Copyright Act protects all original creative works under some conditions. And in general, it grants the author exclusive rights to share, reproduce, adapt, or remix the work. And copyright is automatically applied to works. However, academic authors have the option to negotiate their rights with their publishers. And this may not always be obvious, but for us on USURJ, it's very important for us to let authors know that they have certain rights and they have the ability to negotiate their copyright license, and we're here to support them. So this next slide here is going to just give you a brief overview of how Creative Commons licensing works and show you how your work might be protected and licensed at USURJ. So USURJ uses a Creative Commons attribution called CC by NC by default. So this license is applied to all works by default. CC just means Creative Commons. By means that anyone who uses your work has to give credit to you. NC stands for non-commercial use. So if someone uses your work, it has to be for non-commercial purposes. Now, there are many other types of licenses as well that are slight variations of this default license, and some are more restrictive than others, and some are even more freer. So all of that information will be in the publication agreement. So make sure to read it thoroughly. And again, you have the ability to negotiate what license you would like. All right, so now Kandice will talk about the peer review process.
Or the peer review process, according to this little cartoon. So this pear here is saying how horrendous this manuscript is. But my experience with peer review has been a little bit more positive than this, with very few grumpy pears. And this is especially true for our journal, USURJ, I would say. So first, when you submit your paper to USURJ, an editor and their team will review it and decide whether or not to send the article for review. So they consider first, is the author eligible to submit? So for example, USURJ only accepts USask undergrads. Sometimes we get submissions from other universities and you have to gently reject them because they're not U of S students. Or persons who have graduated from U of S within the past 2 years. So next is the work original, as I described. Is it more than just summarizing other work? Further, the work must not have really poor writing. It must not lack depth or be very rudimentary. And it must not obviously contain, it must not contain plagiarized materials. So for every journal, you have to carefully adhere to the submission preparation guidelines. And last, you have to maintain your anonymity. So you have to remove your name from your manuscript when you submit it, so that when we send it off for review, there's no way that the reviewer can figure out who you are, whose paper they're reviewing. So what is the point of peer review? So that there's experts in the field that we choose, the reviewers, and they ensure that the work is published of high quality. So they're looking for high quality. They look at the methods that are used, the references. They make sure that the conclusions that are drawn make sense. And they ensure the originality of published works, because they're very familiar with the topics that they review. So we carefully choose reviewers that are suitable for every submission. And the reviewers provide critical feedback. And this is really useful for journal editors who might be unfamiliar with specific topics of articles that are submitted. And there are three major types of peer review. So just quickly, open peer review, reviewers know who the authors are and vice versa. Single blind peer review, the reviewers know the name of the authors, but the authors don't know who the reviewers are. And USURJ uses double blind. So the authors don't know who reviewed their manuscript, and the reviewers don't know the name of the author. So this anonymity helps to prevent bias, and it prevents situations where an author might hold a grudge against a prof who gives them a review that they didn't like. So when you receive the reviewed manuscript, you must respond to the editor's comments and the reviewer's comments, along with edits that you make based on the review. Sorry about the banging in the background. So it's important to remember that you don't have to agree with everything that the reviewer comments on. So as long as you respond and provide a rationale, then the journal editors will look at that and decide whether or not your response to the review is sufficient. And in fact, we usually use more than one reviewer, but sometimes if there's a couple of reviewers that are assigned to your paper, you might get contradictory feedback. So one reviewer will say, oh, this is really great. This is a really great point you made. Another reviewer will say the opposite. So it's also important to be diplomatic. Sometimes you have to let go of your attachments to certain parts of your manuscript, and always remember to thank the reviewers for their feedback in your response to the review. The ultimate decision on the acceptance of your paper and its revisions are the editors, the editor-in-chief. So that's Alina and myself this year. So we are the kind of last step towards publication. We look at your response to the reviewers and the changes that you made, and we decide if it's ready to publish, and we let you know, and then send it back to you and ask for the final approval before we publish online. So here's just an example of a peer-reviewed manuscript. You can see the reviewer made comments throughout the manuscript. This is quite a lot of comments. You might not get feedback like this at an undergraduate level, but this is something you might expect. And so what you have to do is just go one by one through each comment and respond to it and address them and make the appropriate changes. And Alina,
all right, so yeah, and the rest is fun. Actually, the entire process is really fun and it's a really great learning experience. But yeah, this step is even funner. Okay, so step 3 is copy editing. So at the copy editing stage, your article will be proofread by the editorial board. So we will proofread your article for any problems in grammar or citations. So at this stage, we're mainly just cleaning up the article. And after copy editing, step 4 is called production. So at the production stage, most of the work is done by layout editors. There's very little work done by you, but there is an important stage where you'll be involved. So at the production stage, layout editors will reformat your article into the journal's layout form, and a PDF proof will be sent to you for approval. Make sure to read this proof very carefully and suggest any changes you'd like to make to the article before it is published. Remember that only minor changes are accepted at this stage. If you want any big changes, like changes to the content, then the paper might require, well, it will require another peer review process. So again, only minor changes are accepted at the production stage. Another important thing to keep in mind is that you'll only have 48 hours to suggest any edits. So this is 48 hours after you get the email with the PDF proof. If you don't respond to that email within those 48 hours, then we will assume that you're happy with the way that the article is, and the article will be published. So yeah, make sure to come back with your changes, to reply with your changes within those 48 hours. Okay, so now we're going to look at some tips for submitting. Okay, perfect. So here are some tips for submitting. Make sure to review the requirements on our website. And again, our website link is just here at the bottom. And review the publication agreement that is also found on our website. If you have any questions, please reach out to us at our email address in the bottom left-hand corner here. Okay, so now let's look into some more specific advice. So when you're submitting an article to USURJ, you have to remember that your audience and your purpose might have shifted. So the majority of the papers that we receive have been papers that were done as part of a class project, so an undergraduate class here at the university. This means that their audience and purpose were very different. So they might have been written for the purpose of fulfilling some class assignment guidelines, and they were written to be read by a professor or a TA. So now that audience and purpose have shifted. So the new purpose is to write, to share your results, the results of your research outside the walls of the classroom. And the new audience is anyone who can access your publication for free online. So you need to keep this in mind when you're preparing your manuscript. And with that in mind, you want to write for a broad but intelligent audience. So this ties into the next point. You want the readers to think, but not try to decipher what you're trying to say. So just be very explicit with what you're trying to say. So this means that you should explain what is the significance of your work? Why should we care? Why did you do what you did in your experiments? So yeah, like these questions might seem very obvious to you, but you have to remember that they might not be that obvious to an audience, especially someone who doesn't have the same level of background knowledge on your topic as you do. So again, you have to make sure that you explain everything, even if it seems very obvious to you. And with that, you have to make sure that you are predicting questions while you're writing and you're attempting to answer those questions. Another thing is to keep in mind that your own original ideas are evident in your work. Again, a mere summary is not enough. This is especially important when we talk about review articles, because what a lot of students will do is they'll just read a bunch of research articles and just summarize them. And that's not a review article. Your original ideas still need to be evident. So so research articles are generally primary sources of information, and review articles are seen as secondary sources of information. So in research articles, you might be conducting an original study or experiment. In review articles, you're summarizing, you're kind of pulling information from primary sources like those research articles, but you're also synthesizing new ideas. You're doing new analysis of those information. So you're summarizing the current knowledge in the field for your topic, but you're also adding in your own ideas. You're suggesting future directions for research. Again, drawing novel conclusions or making new hypotheses. So keep that in mind. Originality is very important. Again, remember that you're not submitting an assignment. Your audience and your purpose have shifted. And another thing to keep in mind is that there will be a lot of baiting and emails from editors. So because we are an undergraduate journal, all of our editors are undergraduate students as well. So keep that in mind when you're waiting on them. But like submitting to USURJ is a great opportunity, because like the worst thing that can happen is that you'll get an article that is just much more better at the end, because you get so much feedback throughout the process. So yeah. And of course, even before you submit or during the publication process, you can feel free to reach out to the U of S Writing Help Center. So this is a writing help center that's at the library. It's free to use. And Liv Markin, our staff advisor, is actually the Writing Help Center coordinator. So you can always email her if you have any questions. Some other resources that we would recommend are for you to look at existing literature in the field, or to look at other conferences or poster presentations to get ideas about how do people communicate their work, and what is the writing style within your field. So these are some great options. And actually there's a SURE symposium that's going on this August. So you might want to attend that to, again, get ideas about how people communicate their work. Again, your supervisor is also a great resource if you have one, and they can help you they can proofread your work and give you some advice before you submit. And another advice is to use citation managers like Zotero. And the library has some great workshops on different citation managers, and some of them are recorded. So you can go ahead and check those out as well. And now we're just going to open the floor for any questions.
That was great. Sorry about interrupting partway through. I'm like, okay, original, you need to explain original. But other than that, that was fantastic. I know that we have a number of students here. If any of you have a question for the two USURJ editors, you do have the head honchos right in front of you. So by all means, take advantage of that. If you have questions, you can either unmute yourself and ask, or you can pop them in the chat. Either way, I'm curious to know, Kandice, I know that you've been around for about a year, and Alina actually kind of longer than that in and around USURJ. How many submissions do you guys get over the course of a year?
Ooh, over a year. Submissions, over the last year that I've been involved with the journal, the submissions were a little bit lower because of COVID and everything, probably. But I would say probably at least like once a week we got a submission last year. So that's like, yeah, like 52. 3 to 5 submissions a month. Do the math.
Awesome, that's fantastic. Yeah. Yun, you have a question. You have your hand up.
Yes, hi. Thank you for the great presentation. I think I really learned a lot from this just half an hour. It's really resourceful. I have 2 questions. First is to determine your eligibility as a student. What if the student study at somewhere else, but is doing the research under a USask professor, like for the summer? Does this count as a USask student?
I would say yes, because it's any work that is done at the University of Saskatchewan. So yeah, you're collaborating with the USask professor, and you're doing the work at the university. So that would definitely count. Kandice, do you have anything to add?
No, I agree with you.
Thank you. That's great news. Yeah, I'll see if I can get any results this summer. And then my second question is about originality. I think we're all undergraduate students. We have an idea and then we do something and then you have a result and then you figure out someone else have already done this. Or you have a figure and then you verify that this figure is agreed by other literatures.
Yeah, I would say like that's totally fine. You include that in your discussion and you engage with it in some kind of original way. So it's not just like the numbers or your figures or your results, it's your ideas, right? So you can think about it and engage with it in your own way, your own original way. It doesn't have to be that it can be a replication study, right? But you are engaging with it and you are conceptualizing it in an original way. It's not, you're not saying just reiterating the same ideas that have been circulating. You have some new ideas. You have, oh, this is a direction where I think this research should go, or here are my reflections on the concept. So it can be original in that sense. It doesn't have to be like some like groundbreaking new research that you're doing, right?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
Undergraduate students, we have to start somewhere until we get that groundbreaking stage. Yeah, thank you very much for answering my question. That's all I have for today. Thanks.
Thank you.
I haven't noticed any other questions coming in on the chat, but that was a fantastic answer, because we do have a number of students who might be working at USask adjacent places as well. Maybe they're at Vito Intervac, maybe they're at the Canadian Light Source this summer, and maybe they have something that they want to publish. I saw a hand go up, but then it went down again really quick. So just watching. And so that obviously, can happen as well. We also have some USask students who take co-ops and internships with Saskatchewan businesses, and they might have, an interesting project that they worked on over the course of the summer, or, a 4-month or 8-month or 12-month internship, and might be interested in publishing that as well. And I think that from my understanding and from what I've seen in USURJ, I think that all of those are definitely options and welcome options as well. And with that, I think that we are at the end of our questions. I don't see any more hands up, and I don't see anything that came in on the chat. But I want to say thank you to Kandice and Alina for an absolutely excellent presentation, very thorough, very reassuring. For undergraduate students, the whole world of research and publishing can be kind of a scary space, and to know that we've got a space right here at USask to kind of be your first time and to have that really supported and mentored experience is so important. Thank you so much for your time and energy that you gave to us today in the presentation, and that you continually give to undergraduate students through USURJ.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being here today.